Hello, all you beautiful people out there, and welcome to my channel for another Saturday live stream. Now, I don't have a comment of the week. Um, Maybe because Hammy Boy was just too boring. Who knows? But anyway, um, but welcome. And if you're new, a double welcome. I hope you enjoy and I hope you subscribe. Um, let's see. I don't have any channel announcements. And since I don't have any uh comment of the day, I guess this is going to be a very, very short Saturday live stream. Um, because I think I'm getting at the end of Second Kings, which is why I'm only doing 2 chapters. Pretty sure that's the reason. So anyway, um, take off your God goggles if you've got them on to begin with. Open your mind to what I got to say, and let's go. Second Kings chapter 16. Yeah, shit. Hang on. In the 17th year of Pekah, son of Remaliah, Ahaz, son of Jotham, king of Judah, began to reign. Ahaz was 20 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 16 years. Unlike David and his father, he did not do what was right in the eyes of the Lord his God. He followed the ways of the kings of Israel and even sacrificed his son in the fire, engaging in the detestable practices of the nations the Lord had driven out before the Israelites. Hey, Nevermore, just to keep you, I know it's been a long time in the Bible since the Israelites came into the quote unquote promised land and all that crap. Just keep you updated. God did not drive all the people out of the land of Canaan for Israel, not even according to the Tanakh. Okay. In fact, we know Israel didn't even conquer Canaan um, in the traditional sense. It was more um, the Bronze Age collapsed, civilizations were in disarray, and a bunch of Canaanites decided to get together and say, hey, let's make a new nation, you know, and that was called Israel. So, anyway, um, getting back to the story, verse 4, he offered sacrifices and burned incense at the high places, on the hilltops, and under every spreading tree. Then Rezin, king of Aram, and Pekah, son of Remaliah, king of Israel, marched up to fight against Jerusalem and besieged Ahaz, but they could not overpower him. At that time, Rezin, king of Aram, recovered Elath for Aram by driving out the people of Judah. Edomites then moved into Elath and have lived there to this day. Ahaz sent messengers to say to Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, I am your servant and vassal. Come up and save me out of the hand of the king of Aram and of the king of Israel, who are attacking me. And Ahaz took the silver and gold found in the temple of the Lord and in the treasuries of the royal palace, and sent it as a gift to the king of Assyria. The king of Assyria complied by attacking Damascus and capturing it. He deported its inhabitants to Kir and put Rezin to death. Okay, so I gotta tell you something, a little something about Assyria. I know I've said this in my other videos, but just in case anybody's here new, um, okay. So at this point in time, hey Selena, at this point in time, um, Assyria was the big bully on the block. Nobody, but nobody wanted to mess with Assyria. So if you got Assyria on your side, nobody's going to mess with you for a while until Assyria decides, forget that. Give me more treasure, else I'm not going to protect you anymore. Hey, big zebra. So anyway, so Assyria was the big bully on the block. And that's why Ahaz um, took gold and silver and and gave it to Tiglath-Pileser, who at that time was the king of Assyria, and said, "Look, I need some protection. Okay, I pissed off some of the wrong people, and you're gonna have to come in and protect my ass." Hey, Venator. So, now Assyria was the big bully on the block. However, there was another side of Assyria that was a little bit gentler, and that was people knew, people at this time, when Assyria was feared above all other empires, that if you knew the Assyrians were coming to attack you, if you just threw open the city gates, because at this time there were city gates, um, if you just threw open the city gates and let them in and let them do whatever they wanted to do, they would spare most of the people. They might take away the king and the princes and whatnot, and they would probably take away the treasure, but they would spare most of the people. If you made Assyria fight for the city, and they always won. You can't be the big bully on the block and not always win. Um, they always won. But if you made them fight, there was hell to pay because they were gonna wipe you off the face of the map. I didn't know that, Selena. Thanks. Okay. So going back to the Babel. Verse 10. Then King Ahaz went to Damascus to meet Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria. He saw an altar in Damascus and sent to Uriah the priest a sketch of the altar with detailed plans for its construction. So Uriah the priest built an altar in accordance with all the plans that King Ahaz had sent from Damascus and finished it before King Ahaz returned. When the king came back from Damascus and saw the altar, he approached it and presented offerings on it. He offered up his burnt offering and grain offering, poured out his drink offering, and splashed the blood of his fellowship offerings against the altar. As for the bronze altar that stood before the Lord, he brought it from the front of the temple, from between the new altar and the temple of the Lord, and put it on the north side of the new altar. King Ahaz then gave these orders to Uriah the priest. On the large new altar, offer the morning burnt offering and the evening grain offering, the king's burnt offering and his grain offering, and the burnt offering of all the people of the land, and their grain offering and their drink offering. Splash against this altar the blood of all the burnt offerings and sacrifices. But I will use the bronze altar for seeking guidance. And Uriah the priest did just as King Ahaz had ordered. King Ahaz cut off the side panels and removed the basins from the movable stands. He removed the sea from the bronze bowls that supported it and set it on a stone basin, on a stone base. All right. I want to stop right here and just remind everybody, um, and for those who are new to my channel, that bull was El's avatar, not Yahweh's avatar. He was El's avatar. And yet we see a temple dedicated to Yahweh that has Bel's avatar. Okay, moving on. You see what I mean by they just mix and match and they don't really care? Okay, verse 18. He took away the Sabbath canopy that had been built at the temple and removed the royal entryway outside the temple of the Lord in deference to the king of Assyria. As for the other events of the reign of Ahaz and what he did, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Judah? Ahaz rested with his ancestors and was buried with them in the city of David, and Hezekiah, his son, succeeded him as king. Okay, chapter 17. And by the way, Hezekiah was the righteous king, just so you know. Okay, chapter 17. In the 12th year of Ahaz, king of Judah, Hoshea, son of Elah, became king of Israel in Samaria, and he reigned 9 years. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord, but not like the kings of Israel who preceded him. Shalmaneser, king of Assyria, came up to attack Hoshea, who had been Shalmaneser's vassal and had paid him tribute. But the king of Assyria discovered that Hoshea was a traitor, for he had sent envoys to So, king of Egypt, and he no longer paid tribute to the king of Assyria as he had done year by year. Therefore Shalmaneser seized him and put him in prison. Remember what I said about Assyria? Bad idea to get us on a serious bad side. Hey, Rabbit. So anyway, Egypt at this time was still it was in decline, but it was still a powerful empire, even though it was still in decline. But at this time, your best bet would have been Assyria. Hoshea really fucked up when he went to Egypt for protection. Assyria would have been the better bet. Verse 5, the king of Assyria invaded the entire land, marched against Samaria, and laid siege to it for 3 years. In the ninth month of Hoshea, the king of Assyria captured Samaria and deported the Israelites to Assyria. He settled them in Hala in Gozan on the Habor River and in the town of the Medes. Uh, verse 7. All this took place because Israelites had sinned against the Lord their God, who had brought them up out of Egypt from under the power of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. They worshipped other gods and followed the practices of the nations the Lord had driven out before them. See my former comment? No, he did not, as well as the practices that the kings of Israel had introduced. The Israelites secretly did things against the Lord their God that were not right. From watchtower to fortified city, they built themselves high places in all their towns. They set up sacred stones and Asherah poles on every high hill and under every spreading tree. Okay, so people probably remember the Asherah poles, and you know, forgive me for keeping to repeat myself, but you know, there are people that come in that don't know this stuff. Um, yeah, Selena, he was. Um, Asherah was El's consort. Asherah was El's consort. So when you get the Yahwists coming in, and there are four major, three, four. Rabbit, help me out on this one, please. Um, there were the Elohists, the Yahwists, the priestly source, and there was another source, I believe, that Ezra took and combined. Hey, Krishna. Hey, Limited. So, you can definitely tell where the Elohists are having a fist bump with the Yahwists, you know. And here's Ezra trying to make everything right, as well as, yes, indeed trying to smooth everything over with being political and all that. So, so you've got, like I said, the Yahwists, the Elohists, the priestly source, and I think there was one other source, but I'm not sure. And so, you know, every once in a while, you're going to get these things that don't make too much sense. And that uh, uh, that's why. Okay, the Deuteronomist. Thank you, Rabbit. The Deuteronomist. I thought there was another source. So this is why you have things that don't make sense, because you've got all of these sources that are compiled by Ezra, but he didn't do a very good job in editing now, did he? So anyway, moving on. Okay, so verse 11. At every high place they burned incense, as the nations whom the Lord had driven out before them had done. They did wicked things that aroused the Lord's anger. They worshipped idols, though the Lord said, "You shall not do this." The Lord warned Israel and Judah through all his prophets and seers: "Turn from your evil ways, observe my commands and decrees in accordance with the entire law that I commanded your ancestors to obey, and that I delivered to you through my servants the prophets." But they would not listen, and were as stiff necked as their ancestors, who did not trust in the Lord their God. They rejected his decrees and the covenant he had made with their ancestors, and the statutes he had warned them to keep. They followed worthless idols and themselves became worthless. Oh, come on. Ezra, that is dehumanizing. I mean, come on. It's according to you, Ezra, it's God's job to judge, so you shouldn't be judging them, you fucking idiot. Oh, yeah, Rabbit, I know that all too well. We've already been through Deuteronomy. All right, going back. Um, they imitated the nations around them, although the Lord had ordered them, "Do not do as they do." Verse 16. They forsook all the commands of the Lord their God, and made for themselves two idols cast in the shape of calves and an Asherah pole. So what do we have? What do we have here? We have El and his Asherah. That is who we are talking about here. El and his Asherah. I'm sorry, Rabbit. Just remember that we have El and his Asherah. They bowed down to all the starry hosts, and they worshipped Baal. Well, okay, I can see that. Because, I mean, according to Canaanite mythology, Baal was the son of El, so, why not? you know. Verse 17, they sacrificed their sons and daughters in the fire. They practiced divination and saw omens and sold themselves to do evil in the eyes of the Lord, arousing his anger. So the Lord was very angry with Israel and removed them from his presence. Only the tribe of Judah was left. I thought God was omnipresent. How can a God remove somebody from his presence if that God is omnipresent? Oh, Rabbit, my dad died. It put me spinning. Well, that's what the fundies think, Rabbit. When my dad died, I was having a hard time with anxiety, and it's gotten a lot better since. But anyway, back to the show. Yeah, I'm still he lived with me. I was his caretaker for 5 years, his caregiver, and it's hard, you know? It's hard not having him. But anyway, going on. Verse 19, and even Judah did not keep the commands of the Lord their God. They followed the practices Israel had introduced. Therefore, the Lord rejected all the people of Israel. He afflicted them and gave them into the hands of the plunderers until he thrust them from his presence. Verse 21, when he tore Israel away from the house of David, they made Jeroboam son of Nebat their king. Jeroboam enticed Israel away from following the Lord, caused them to commit great sin. The Israelites persisted in all the sins of Jeroboam and did not turn away from them until the Lord removed them from his presence, as he had warned through all his servants the prophets. So the people of Israel were taken from their homeland into exile in Assyria, and they are still there. Verse 24, the king of Assyria brought people from Babylon, Cutha, Ava, Hamath, and Sepharvaim, and settled them in the towns of Samaria to replace the Israelites. They took over Samaria and lived in its towns. When they first lived there, they did not worship the Lord. So he sent lions among them, and they killed some of the people. What? Like, these aren't even Israelites. Anyway, you know what it sounds like to me? It sounds to me, and this is just me, you know, um, but it sounds like to me that Ezra's just giving an excuse to his weak ass God because his weak ass God could not protect the nation. Yeah, Israel just sinned. That's why God let him go away into. No, 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 no. It had nothing to do with Assyria was a mighty empire at the time. Yeah. Sorry ass excuse for your weak ass God there, Ezra. 26. It was reported to the king of Assyria, the people you deported and resettled in the towns of Samaria do not know what the God of that country requires. He has sent lions among them, which are killing them off because the people do not know what he requires. You know, when people used to not know what thunder was, and so they thought it was the hammer of Thor? You too, Otangelo. That's what it sounds like these people are doing to me. I know, Selena, that has got to be one of the funniest stories in the Bible. It really has to be one of the funniest stories in the Bible, at least to me. Alrighty, going on. Then verse 27, and the king of Syria gave this order: have one of the priests you took captive from Samaria go back to live there and teach the people what the God of the land requires. So one of the priests who had been exiled from Samaria came to live in Bethel and taught them how to worship the Lord. Nevertheless, each national group made its own gods in the several towns where they were settled and set them up in the shrines of the people of Samaria had made at the high places. The people from Babylon made Succoth Benneth, those from Cutha made Nergal, and those from Hamath made Ashima. The Avites made Nibez and Tartak, and the Sepharvites uh, burned their. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to get demonetized. To Adramelech and Anamelech, the gods of Sepharvaim. They worshiped the Lord, but they also appointed all sorts of their own people to officiate for them as priests in the shrines at the high places. They worshiped the Lord, but they also served their own gods in accordance with the customs of the nations from which they had been brought. To this day, they persist in their former practices. They neither worship the Lord nor adhere to the decrees and regulations, the laws and commands that the Lord gave the descendants of Jacob, whom he named Israel. When the Lord made a covenant with the Israelites, he commanded them, do not worship any other gods or bow down to them, serve them, or sacrifice to them. But the Lord who brought you out of Egypt with a mighty power and outstretched arm is the one you must worship. To him you must bow down, and to him offer sacrifices. And anybody else here think Yahweh's a mega narcissist? All right. Not to mention, he must have a huge insecurity complex. I mean, okay, if I were God, okay, let's just say I was God for a day, okay? I don't believe in God, okay? So, you know, don't get all over me about this at Angelo because I don't believe in God, okay? But let's say I'm God for a day, right? And I know I'm the only God out there, right? So, why would I care if other people were serving other gods, gods that didn't even exist? Why would I fucking care? Why, if I was the only true God, why would I fucking care that people were worshiping other gods? It doesn't make sense. Thank you, Rabbit. Okay, verse 37. Boy, I've got a lot of commentary today. Verse 37. You must always be careful to keep the decrees and regulations, the laws and commands he wrote for you. Do not worship other gods. Do not forget the excuse me, the covenant I have made with you, and do not worship other gods. Rather, worship the Lord your God. It is he who will deliver you from the hand of all your enemies. Again, it sounds like an excuse, you know? You you know, um no, it's not because Assyria was stronger than you, Israel. It's because you just decided to forget your God. All right, verse 40. They would not listen, however, but persisted in their former practices. Even while these people were worshiping the Lord, they were serving their idols. To this day, their children and grandchildren continue to do as their ancestors did. Okay, so what have we learned from this, people? We learn God's, you know, the God that doesn't exist is a narcissist, psychopath, as is trying to make excuses for his weak ass God that doesn't exist because Israel can't defend itself. Israel nor Judah can defend itself against Assyria, which, like, duh, Assyria's like the empire everybody fears at this time. Why do you think a small little kingdom like Israel or Judah would be able to fight off a big ass empire like Assyria? It does not make sense. So, yeah, I mean, oh, Ochangelo and blessed be he. You gotta stick around to when I get to Isaiah, peeps. You have got to stick around to when I get to Isaiah because I have learned a lot from Rabbi Tovia Singer about what Isaiah really meant. And on that note, did you know that the church, I'm talking about the Catholic Church, they screwed with the Hebrew Bible because they wanted to line it up with the New Testament? Yep. They actually screwed with the Old Testament, which is why Jews don't like Christians because I mean, most Jews don't know that Christians don't know that people 700 to 1300 years ago messed with the Jewish scriptures. The Jews don't understand that. Hey, Beach, the Jews can only see that the Christians have messed with the Jewish scriptures, and that makes them angry. And, I mean, if you think the Jewish scriptures are the Word of God, I can see that. Well, actually, Selena, the original Septuagint wasn't even all of Tanakh. It was just the 5 books of Moses. Hey, Mr. Shadow Kitty. That's something I also learned from the rabbi. Originally, it was only the 5 books of Moses. It wasn't the entire Tanakh. And, you know, um, I'll get to it, but there's a verse in Hosea um, that the Christians, the Christian Bible messed with, and I'll get to it. Um, but basically, um, it, I mean, it's a mess. It really is a mess how Christians have messed with the Jewish Bible. It really is. So anyway, um, well, I guess that's all I've got to say for today. Um, Nevermore, actually, I would say Christianity's more of a Roman thing than a Jewish thing. I mean, it knocked some things off from Judaism. Let's face it, you know, but it's more of a Roman thing. Came more it came more from Roman stuff, like Dionysus and stuff like that. Um, but anyway, hey, Marianne. So anyway, but yeah, um, it's interesting, to see what a rabbi has to say about Christianity. And believe me, I've been listening to this rabbi for a while. He knows Christianity. He knows his Jewishness and he knows Christianity. He does. And if anybody has any sense who is a Christian, they ought to listen to him because it will change your mind about Christianity. I don't give a shit if you become a Jew. This is true, Selena. This is true. So anyway, I, I'm gonna leave it at that. Please, leave a like or a dislike. If you really wanna dislike the stream, you can dislike it. N I can't say not to, but please leave a like and a comment down below. Yeah, he did, Beej. He did. He got so upset about Jews for Jesus. Oh, can't I pole dance in hell? Yeah, I mean, that floats around there from time to time too, Selena. So anyway, I will see you guys tomorrow for Atheist Church, and have a good rest of the day.